Hi, it's Gene, retired in Mexico, and I'm very pleased to have my special guest. My special guest, my, there we go. My special guest. Everything's backwards here. My special guest, Professor Gumbo from Phoenix, Arizona, and we are talking about the 1970s and our favorite albums. And we've listened to a lot of music, so we're not the kings of the universe, arbitrators of taste, arbiters of, how do you say that word? Arbiters?
Arbiters.
Yeah, arbiters of taste. But we've listened
I
to a
am.
lot of music, talked about it over the years. The professor we met in high school around 1973, and he was my mentor. And now we're catching up over the years because the student, which was me, has developed his own taste. And so we have some things in common and some things that are different. And I hope you enjoy it. If you're on here, we appreciate even a moment of your time. And you can support me in lots of ways. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Patreon. I'll put the Patreon link below, and you can support me there for free or for $2 a month. It's up to you. And we got lots of content there as well. And yeah, and so we enjoy music, and we're going to count down our top 10 albums. We're going to pick two songs from each album and then do a Spotify playlist. So the link will be down below for that as well. And yeah, any support, hit the like, subscribe button, comments. We like engagement, it helps. That's the oil that makes the machine run on YouTube. And I'm going to be going first. We're taking turns going first, but what I've been doing is I want to give you a little background on 1976. That's what we're doing today. And it was a pretty eventful year. And I just want to run these down pretty quickly um, to say, what was 1976? Besides the year I graduated from high school, it was a year that celebrated the bicentennial, 200th birthday of the United States of America. Jimmy Carter won the presidential election. In other news, Patty Hearst's trial began, and she was found guilty. She had been kidnapped and brainwashed and was involved in an armed robbery with Symbionese Liberation Army, and it was a big story in the press. Don't you agree, Jim? Remember that?
Yes, yes. Very memorable.
Another person that was in the news, her name was Karen Ann Quinlan, and she was on a ventilator on life support, and they would not remove the life support. In 1976, the court ruled that they could remove the ventilator. Now, she ended up living another 9 years, but we take that for granted now, right? You take people off life support all the time, but in 76, it was a big moral battle in the courts. In business, Apple Computers was formed by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. So obviously, we're still dealing with a lot of Apple products today. Price Club, later renamed Costco, was founded. The first laser printer was introduced by IBM. In some, let's see here, gymnast Nadia Comaneci, I cannot say her name. She was a she was in the Summer Olympics and she scored seven perfect tens, which was unheard of. So she was a big star in the news, and so was Bruce Jenner, who's still around now, Caitlyn Jenner, who won the gold medal in the decathlon. The Viking 1 and Viking 2 missions landed on Mars. So this was the first time that any anything from Earth had landed on Mars. Son of Sam. This was a serial killer in New York City, and he was terrorizing everybody. He was on the lam for a long time. Chairman Mao Zedong died in China, and so things changed that year in 1976 with new leaders. In Phoenix news, the professor and I are from Phoenix. A couple things that happened I just want to mention. Normally, I don't mention local news, but one was reporter Don Bowles was fatally injured in a car bomb by shady characters. Some would say the mafia. I knew Don Bowles. He was a member of our congregation when I was growing up, and we were very upset by it. And it happened right between my graduation and the bicentennial. So here was this upbeat time, and this really horrible, tragic thing happened. In sports, the Boston Celtics and the Phoenix Suns were in the playoffs. And in game five, there was a triple overtime, and it was later voted the greatest game in 50 years. And I remember watching that game. It was a nail biter. And then music deaths. There were some big deaths in the blues. Howlin' Wolf, Jimmy Reed, Freddie King all died. Huge names in blues music. Tommy Bolin and Paul Kossoff of Free died. They were highly praised guitar players. And Bob Marley was nearly killed in an assassination attempt, but he survived. And the top movies included Rocky, A Star is Born, which I am in that movie. I went to the filming of A Star is Born, and you'll spot me in the crowd. The Bad News Bears, one of my favorite movies, All the President's Men, and King Kong. So there you have it. Do you remember all those things?
Mostly.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna start with my number 10. And real quick before I start, I just want to say that I have seven honorable mentions. And of these 17 albums that I'm going to discuss, six of them are five-star albums on All Music, but only two of them in my top 10. So this is going to be a little different because every year that I've done this, I've been in alignment with the critics. If I like the album, the critics like it too. But I have some albums in my top 10 that are not five-star or even 4.5-star albums, but they're albums that I like. So I think there's a little more subjectivity this time around. And my number 10 is my first appearance in the 70s of Steely Dan. So I did not put their first four albums on any of my top 10 lists or even my honorable mentions. But in 1976, they released The Royal Scam. And this is the Steely Dan that I like. Some people aren't crazy about this album, but I think it's wonderful. I think it sounds great. I think Donald Fagen's lyrics are 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 really great. A little bit dark, a little bit cynical. Um, Sounds great. And of course, this is when they were working with session musicians. And yeah, this is really the beginning of the period that I really like. There's three Steely Dan albums that I really like, and this is the first in that series, The Royal Scam. And the two songs I'm going to go with are Kid Charlemagne, the opener, which has killer guitar from Larry Carlton. And then I could have picked any number of songs for the second pick, but I'm going to go with Haitian Divorce, which is a very funny song about their manager engineer who went to Haiti to get a divorce. And they thought it was hilarious, so they wrote a song about it. And it's great, but I also like the song Don't Take Me Alive. But it's too much like Kid Charlemagne, so I wanted to get a little divergence for the playlist. So Steely Dan, The Royal Scam.
Very good. Very good choice. It's one of my favorite Steely Dan albums also. Okay. I'm going to start with an album that many people aren't familiar with. I mean, there are people who are, but they're very much a fringe artist unless you're really into progressive rock, in which case they are among the kings of progressive rock. And that is Vandergraaf Generator, Peter Hamel's band. And I have been a fan of Vandergraaf for a long time. And Gene, did you go to see Peter Hamel with me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I thought you did. Yes. So the night they released two albums in 1976, and the one that I like the best is the second one, Still Life. And it's actually the one that's not chosen as often, but I think it's incredible. It's Peter Hamill's lyrics. He is he has been called in some ways the Bob Dylan of progressive rock in that he's such an erudite lyricist. But his lyrics are very philosophical. They are very existential, and they're kind of mind blowing as well. And so, and then his singing, which I mentioned in an earlier album with an earlier Van de Graaff, was compared in the early days that he did with his vocals what Jimi Hendrix could do with guitar. Peter Hamill can sing a beautiful vocal, or he can be incredibly crazy and ugly and scary. And he does both on this album, does both of them. Um, the album only has 5 tracks on it, unless you get the bonus tracks, which are well worth getting. But the 2 tracks that I'm going to choose are the two that make up side two of the record. And those are My Room, Waiting for Wonderland, which is a beautiful ballad, and then the very anthemic Childhood's Faith in Childhood's End, or Childlike Faith, sorry, Childlike Faith in Childhood's End. Um, and to me, it's like when you get to the last 5 minutes of the song, because it's a 12-minute song. When you get the last 5 minutes, you get this fist pumping thing with his vocals because he writes such a great anthemic tune to it. So um, the album is Still Life, and you've got My Room and Childlike Faith in Childhood's End.
Yeah, it's funny. I just, they haven't made any of my top tens or honorable mentions so far. And I guess at this point probably won't. And yet I really like Van der Graaf, and I really like Peter Hamill. And that was a great show. It was at the Rhythm Room, and it was unplugged. It was just him on guitar and keyboards. And fantastic show. Yeah, I like them a lot. So good pick. My number 9 now is going to be my favorite album by this artist. It was and by the way, we're getting into now. When we did 1970, I know it was all male and it was all white. But things changed rapidly in the 70s, and this is a much more diverse list now that we're getting to uh, the middle of the decade, much more diverse artists, and or at least in terms of major recording, and a beautifully recorded album by Glenn Johns, who worked with The Who and the Rolling Stones. Her third album, originally from St. Kitts and then raised in England. This is Joan Armatrading, her self-titled album. And this would have to be my favorite. You introduced me to this album, Professor, and it's great. And listening to it for this project, I was like, man, every song is a winner on this album. So for those who are not familiar with her, she's a a guitar player, in the beginning acoustic, though later she would play electric guitar. And at this point, she was kind of a folky. Uh, but throughout her career, she has adopted synth pop and blues and many different styles. And I am a fan. I am definitely a fan of Joan Armatrading. She, by the way, has like a 4 or 5 octave range, and her vocal gymnastics, I'm going to call them, not even dynamics, but gymnastics, are phenomenal, phenomenal. She can sing high, she can sing low, she sings with a lot of emotion. And I'm going to go with the obvious 2 choices. Like I say, every song's a winner, but the most streamed songs, her most streamed song is Love and Affection. That's one of my picks. And then Down to Zero, which is for a long time was the best known song on the album. But over the years, Love and Affection has grown to be a highly streamed song and now her most popular. and they're concert favorites as well. Um, can't say enough about Joan Armour Trading, wonderful artist. And so that's my pick for number nine.
Great production by Glenn Johns also on that one.
Yeah.
Okay. My number nine is an artist that I discovered in 1976 who released two albums in that year. And his name is Graham Parker, and with his band, The Rumor. And they were pub rock, which was sort of a precursor to new wave. And so, if you listen to them and say, well, that kind of reminds me a little bit of early Elvis Costello. Yes, it does. But a little bit more raw than Elvis was. And I would choose the second of the two. They were Howlin' Wind and Heat Treatment, but I would choose Heat Treatment as my personal favorite. And it might even be, if it's not my favorite Graham Parker album, it's it's my second favorite, or it's tied to. Um, okay, so the songs that I would choose are Heat Treatment, the title track, which is just real funky and real R&B, and then Pouring It All Out, which has a great melodic line to it. And those are just two gems from a treasure of an album. Heat Treatment with Heat Treatment and Pouring It All Out.
Wow. Yeah, great picks. I'm a huge Graham Parker fan. I think I have a slight preference for Howlin' Wind, but it's really close, isn't it?
It really
And
is.
and he's one of the few musicians that I've talked to that I had a chance to chat with one time. So um, there aren't many. I can count them on one hand, but he's a nice guy. He's great, and he would go on to make lots of great music. Uneven career, but man, even his I think his later career is underrated. I think he has some real gems as he went through the 80s and 90s. Yeah, great pick. So my number eight now is one of my two five-star albums, according to AllMusic. There's other critical websites, of course. Um, another finally got an R&B artist on here. Finally, this guy keeps making my honorable mentions every year. I finally got Stevie Wonder on here. Songs in the Key of Life. This came out when I was a freshman in college, which I spent one semester in Hawaii on the windward side of Oahu. And I remember this album came out at that time and they were playing the songs on the radio. It's a double. It's not quite a perfect album, but sometimes with the double, I give it a little slack. It's kind of like Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and that there might be one or two average songs on it, but who cares because there's so much good stuff. And there were tons of singles, and there's like over 50 people that played on this album. It was crazy. I was just reading yesterday when I was researching for this that he had almost quit music. He was going to move to Ghana. But he changed his mind, signed a new contract, and it was record contract at the time, $37 million, which is like 120 something, no, 200 and something. It's over 200 million in today's money. But it's just, and you talk about production. We were talking about the Joan Armour Trading, how good that sounds. Of course, Steely Dan always sounds good, but Songs in the Key of Life is a wonderful album. And I guess it was delayed for almost a year while he decided he wanted to remix it. But I'm going to go with a couple singles. First one is Sir Duke, which is about all the great musicians from the past, Duke being Duke Ellington. But he mentions other musicians in it, and it's got killer horns, very up tempo. And then on the fourth side of the album is a long piece called As, A-S. That's the entire name of the song. Herbie Hancock's featured on it. And the lyrics are wonderful. It's just a great emotional, spiritual song. Uh, Yeah, this is Stevie Wonder's masterpiece, I think. And then, in my opinion, he would slowly go downhill after this. It's kind of embarrassing, but he's been around another 50 years. He's still alive, and I just don't think he's topped Songs in the Key of Life. I think that was his peak. So that's my number eight.
Okay, my number eight is an artist that I discovered somewhat early compared to the rest of America, and then he became huge. And what's really interesting is, as his teacher, many high school students still love his music, and that is Bob Marley. Bob Marley and the Wailers. He is the both the Elvis and the Dylan and maybe the Beatles also of reggae music. Okay. I mean, there's just nobody can top Bob Marley. And uh, if I had to choose a favorite, this is sort of cheating, but I actually love the tracks on this. It's Live at the Roxy, a two-disc set that is actually beats his earlier live album, in my opinion. It came out right after the album that I discovered first, which was Positive Vibration, excuse me, Rastaman Vibration. And it was on the Rastaman Vibration tour. And so the songs that I would choose, it's a pretty good collection of tracks from most of his career up to that point. But this is the complete concert live at the uh, Live at the Roxy, the complete concert. And the two tracks that I would choose would be Positive Vibration, which was the track that was the opening track from the Rastaman Vibration album, and then No Woman, No Cry. It was either a toss up between two of the most famous, No Woman, No Cry, or uh, I Shot the Sheriff. But listening to them again recently, it's just such a fine version of No Woman, No Cry. And Bob was at his peak then. And if you don't have any Bob Marley album and you want to start with one, this is a great one. Live at the Roxy, the complete concert.
Wow, and I didn't listen to that for this project, so I'm really pleased to hear you say that. I'm a huge Bob Marley fan. Yeah, great. I like those song choices too. That's going to be great on the playlist. My number seven, I thought about bumping this up. I might like it more than number seven, uh, but I'm going to stick with it. I already made the list. But number seven is Genesis, A Trick of the Tail. So this, of course, is after Peter Gabriel left, and it's hard. I think it's hard for people to put in context if you weren't around in '76. But Melody Maker, which is a UK newspaper, declared Genesis dead. They wrote a big article. Well, Genesis didn't like that too much, and Phil Collins was a reluctant lead singer. He's a drummer, of course, and he wanted to stay behind the drum kit. And they auditioned singers, but they ended up saying, Phil, I think you're our man. And man, talking about good sounding albums, here you go again. Every album on here I've mentioned so far has been really well recorded and engineered. David Henschel's production on this is fantastic. Oh, I just used the word fantastic. A word that I use way too much, but this album sounds great. Absolutely sounds great. I was listening to it again today, this morning, and yeah, if I say I love every song, there's one song on this album that's less than perfect to me. I still like it. It's Robbery, Assault, and Battery. That would be my least favorite song on the album, and it brings it down just a notch, but it's still like a 9.7 or 9.8. And there's so many great songs on here. And I think the fact that they still do, or well, they're not touring now, but for years they did a lot of songs from this album and they were concert favorites. I don't know, what can I say about it? it exceeded expectations. I think the professor would agree with that, that we were all pleasantly surprised when this album came out. And this was the toughest album on the list, I think, for me to pick two songs because they're kind of even Steven. But I'm going to go with a ballad and a rocker. I'm going to go with Ripples, which is just an extremely pretty song with really nice lyrics. And then the last song on the album is, well, there's a short one after that, but Los Endos, which is a concert favorite and just features some great Phil Collins drumming. The last thing I'll say about Trick of the Tail, when I was listening to it again this morning, I was thinking, what a democratic band. Because there's this really pretty guitar by Steve Hackett on songs like Ripples and Entangled, especially. Just really pretty guitar. But then Banks comes in with his really beautiful keyboards, everything from synths and organ to grand piano. And then Rutherford is a great bass player, and Collins is a great drummer. And these guys are a true ensemble. And I think they don't get credit for how much they rock sometimes. Genesis could play hard. For a prog rock band, they could play really hard. So number seven, Genesis, A Trick of the Tail.
Steve Hackett might take exception to them being described as a democratic band because his tracks,
Yeah, okay.
his songs were constantly being vetoed in favor of Tony Banks's and Mike Rutherford's, which is why ultimately, in two albums down, he quit the band. Um, yes, he as an instrumentalist, they feature his guitar, but not as a songwriter. Um,
You are right. You are correct about that.
they, and there are some people who are big supporters of Steve Hackett who say that Tony Banks was actually jealous of Hackett's success with Voyage of the Acolyte, and but yes, but they were as far they did have instrumentally they were democratic. All right, my next one is a band that I really have liked a lot. I introduced to me by Cindy, but I only have, I think, two of their albums on my list. I had one of them on as an honorable mention, but this one has made the top 10. It's Electric Light Orchestra, A New World Record, which is my
Hmm.
favorite album by ELO. And, a couple of years ago, I was telling my young friend, my not young, he's in his mid 30s now, but actually going into his late 30s. But he was a student of mine, and he loves music from the 70s. And I've introduced him to some that he wasn't familiar with, and one of them was Electric Light Orchestra. He goes, "My God, were these guys the next Beatles?" And in many ways, if you listen to uh, a New World Record, um, and especially on the song Shangri-La, my Shangri-La has gone away, faded like the Beatles on Hey Jude. And then Jeff Lynne sings, Judy, baby. What's interesting about Jeff Lynne is he sounds like Paul McCartney and he sounds like John Lennon and he sounds like George Harrison. He's like a amalgam of the three singers of the Beatles. Um, and of course, he was with George Harrison as one of the traveling Wilburys. But you know, ELO went on to make some bigger selling albums, but this one is still my favorite. And the two songs that I would choose from it, very different as far as there's a lot of variety on the album. Practically no two songs sound alike, but one is uh, one of their first huge singles, and that's Telephone Line, which is a really beautiful ballad, kind of a prog ballad, prog-ish ballad. You call them prog pop, I guess. And then the other one is a personal favorite song of mine that Jeff Lynne wrote when he was in the band The Move, and it became kind of a radio single, but the ELO version is even more dynamic, and that is Do Ya.
Hmm.
So my two favorite songs from the album, or the two picks, Our Telephone Line, and Do Ya from A New World Record by ELO, Electric Light Orchestra.
Wow. I forgot Dewey was on there. Yeah, just a great sort of in that vein of songs like Sweet Jane and things where it just has a great riff. Um, my number seven is a band you've mentioned, but it's a different album. Bob Marley and the Wailers.
Number six, right?
Number six, I am on number, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Number six. Thank you for correcting me. Number six, Bob Marley and the Wailers, Rastaman Vibration. I first heard this at your house. Now, a couple things to say about this. One is, it doesn't get critically rave reviews because it's sandwiched in between Natty Dread and Exodus, which are more highly rated albums. And Exodus was picked by Time Magazine as the album of the century. But I don't know. I didn't have Natty Dread on my list from our previous recordings, and Exodus is a good album, but this is the one I like right in here between. I like Rastaman Vibration. Thank you, Alexa. I don't know if you heard that. I got an announcement on my smart speaker. But and this is interesting too because this was Bob Marley and the Wailers, not the Wailers, because Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer had left the band. And those guys put out albums this year as well that were their best albums, and I could have easily put them on here. Peter Tosh put out Equal Rights, which I think is his best album. And an album I like even more than that album is Bunny Wailer's Blackheart Man, which I owned on vinyl for a long time. And that's a terrific album. Love Blackheart Man. I could have easily put Equal Rights and especially Blackheart Man on this list, but I'm kind of with you. I kind of just like Bob. And so I have three songs that I really like on here. One was a Desert Island song. So in the UK, they have a show called Desert Island Discs where celebrities get on and they pick 8 songs to take to a desert island. That's brutal. 8 songs and one book. And I chose Root Rock Reggae by Bob Marley as one of my 8 songs to take to a desert island. And yet, I'm not going to pick it for my 2 songs from my playlist because objectively, I think there are just 2 classic, stone cold classic songs on here that you got to put on. And one is Crazy Bald Head. Crazy Bald Head about the education system and specifically the white man trying to educate the minorities and brainwash education, and we're going to chase those crazy bumpheads out of our town. Speaking of Graham Parker, he did an awesome live version of that on the whatever that album was called, that unplugged live album that he did. But there's some scat on here by Bob. It's both poignant and a little bit funny. I love Crazy Bald Head. And then I think you just got to pick the song War, where he put a speech by Haile Selassie to music. And until the philosophy that holds one race superior to another is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, everywhere is war. It's just phenomenal lyrics. So I'm going to be objective and go with Crazy Bald Head and War. This was an album, by the way, that when it was released originally on vinyl, it had a rough cover that was made to imitate burlap, and you were supposed to roll your marijuana on it and sort your seeds. So, do you remember that?
I do. I remember. That's why you liked it so much.
Yeah, and well, many of these albums, by the way, when you would find them in the used record store, had they were smooth because they had been they had been used so much for rolling that people had worn the bumps off of them. But yeah, Rastaman Vibration #6.
And you could get a contact high just from sniffing the album covers. Okay, so my number six is an album that I love, and that very few people who like this artist would choose this one. They would choose well, I'll say his second album, his second important album, because he had earlier album that nobody pays attention to. But this one I like better, and it's Warren Zevon. It's his first self-titled album, Warren Zevon. And he became famous with Excitable Boy, which I actually bought first. But then I got Warren Zevon, and I like the songs on Warren Zevon better. It's not quite as crazy of an album as Excitable Boy, but I think that the songs are more sophisticated, and it's really hard for me to choose two. Um, one song that it was and also ran, but so close, is Desperados Under the Eaves, which has the wonderful line, that he's sitting outside, and I was listening to the radiator hum. It went, mm, mm. It's just great. Yeah, Warren Zevon was a fantastic lyricist, but he wrote several songs that uh, Linda Ronstadt had hits with, and one of them is "Poor, Poor, Pitiful Me." I like his version of it because it it just it sounds like when Linda Ronstadt sings it, it almost sounds like she's singing about a guy abusing her. With Warren Zevon singing about a girl abusing him, it's a lot funnier. Okay. Um, and so he meets this girl who puts him through the changes, sort of like a wearing blender. Um, and so it's one of the best songs on the album. But the other is a song that is so influenced. It's a nod to musically to Van Morrison, and it is Muhammad's Radio. And it's always
Hmm.
been one of my favorite songs by Warren Zevon since the first time I heard it. So, Poor, Poor, Pitiful Me, and the Van Morrison influenced Muhammad's Radio.
I love that album. Yeah, Desperado Under the Eaves. If California slides into the ocean, I predict this motel will be standing till I pay my bill.
Right. Like the mystics and statistics say it will.
Yeah, phenomenal lyricist. Linda Ronstadt, by the way, cut a couple lines out of that song. Do you remember?
On Poor, Poor, Pitiful Me.
She asked me if I'd take her uh, to the motel and beat her,
Yeah.
and she didn't. She took that line out.
Uh,
She's like,
I
I
like
don't
the,
want to talk about. I don't want to talk about
I don't want
it.
to talk about it.
Yeah, so she did edit the song slightly. But yeah, his is funnier. It's much funnier. I lay my head on the railroad tracks waiting for the double E. These young girls won't let me be, and poor, poor, pitiful me. And it's hilarious. It's a great pick. I love it. Thank you. Um, Big Warren Zevon fan. All right, #5. This is going to be, I think, one of two surprises on my list. Nah, my only surprise. I don't think you'd be surprised by the other. But at #5 is an album that All Music gives 5 stars to. And it's one of the best country western albums you'll ever hear. It's Waylon Jennings, Waylon Live, one of my two favorite country western artists. His This album is so much fun. And it's been released in deluxe versions with extra tracks, but I'm just going to talk about the original 11 track album, shorter LP, but the long one is great too. I've listened to both. And Waylon Jennings had a crackerjack band. He had who was it? Herb Peterson, I think. Was it Herb Peterson on steel guitar? Fantastic. There's that word again. But wonderful band on here, and the audience rapport is great, and his little storytelling between songs. I'm a huge Waylon Jennings fan. I just think he's the best. We're talking now about Texas country western. We're not talking about Nashville. We're talking about the Outlaws. And Waylon was, some people would say Willie Nelson, but for me, for my money, Waylon Jennings is the outlaw guy. And I love Texas country music. So many great songs on here. And there's a couple covers, by the way. He closes with a couple covers. And one of them is a very good version. You'd be surprised, Jim, how great this is. He does House of the Rising Sun.
Really?
Really a good version. And then I think he does Me and Bobby McGee after that.
Is
But
House one of your choices?
no, because they're covers. I'm going to go with a couple of his other songs. Well, one is a cover anyway, but those are the last two songs on the album. And you would think that he would blow it. He would blow it on House of the Rising Sun. That's not a song that a country western artist could cover, but you hear it and you say, okay, he nailed it. But my picks are the Jimmy Rogers cover, T for Texas, and an original song he wrote called Bob Wills is Still the King. And these two tracks are on most of his greatest hits collections. Um, yeah, for me to get country in here, but I got some reggae and I got some country, and it's kind of a diverse list. I like it. So at number five, I'm going with Waylon Jennings, Waylon Live, T for Texas, Bob Wills is Still the King.
I look forward to hearing those songs and I'll probably listen to the whole album, click on it from Spotify because I haven't heard the album. It's very rare for you to choose a top 10 that I haven't heard, but there's one.
Mhm.
And so I'm sure it's going to be very enjoyable because you have impeccable taste. Your taste can't be pecked. Um, okay, my number five is going to be in your top four. I know it will be. If it's not, I'm going to be blown away. This is probably it's either my favorite album by this artist or it's my second favorite by it. Joni Mitchell, Hijira. And I love this album. I love the production of it. It's where she just really started. I mean, she'd already experimented with kind of a jazz sound, but this is combining the jazz sound with her singer-songwriter folk, and it just it's Joni at her peak lyrically, vocally, songwriting. I mean, everything that's great about Joni Mitchell. I can't think of a single weakness on this album. By the way, this one and the following four albums are all tens, perfect tens, in my opinion. And so Hijira, the first song I would choose is Coyote, which kind of became a mainstay of Joni's repertoire. So the first song on the album, Coyote, and the last song on the album, Refuge of the Roads, which has a great lyric about, you know, seeing the earth from a distance. And it's like she's floating off away from it. Those two songs, Coyote, by the way, is a really erotic song about her tryst with a guy that she meets in a bar. And you think, oh, erotic, but she says, you know, he picks up my scent on his fingers while he's watching the waitress's legs.
Right.
I don't think we're talking about her perfume.
No, definitely not. And which you just reminded me of something that I got to do. But yeah, I think I love that album. And what I did was spoiler alert, I am going to have it on my list, but I forgot to pick two songs. So I'm going through here. Uh Yeah, okay, I got my two songs. All right. I just picked them right now. I forgot to, but before that though is and we were talking about how there's women and soul artists and minorities on here. I got another woman on here, top 10 artists for me. And like the Bob Marley album, I think this is a seriously underrated album sandwiched between two critical favorites. People do not like this album. A lot of people do not like this album. I don't understand. I think it's great. It's Patti Smith Group, Radio Ethiopia. I have always loved this album. I first heard it when I was in Hawaii. My friend Nabula Sawada from Osaka, Japan, played it for me, and I've loved it ever since. Yeah, it's a little more commercial. It's got some rock and roll on it, but the lyrics are fantastic. Fantastic. There's that word again. Told you I use that word all the time. The lyrics are great. And the producer is Jack Douglas, who produced Double Fantasy for John Lennon and Yoko Ono. I I don't understand the hate on this album, except for obviously the last track, the 10-minute track, Radio Ethiopia. It is kind of noise rock. Okay. So I can understand how some people wouldn't like that. Um, but I love it. It's it's got kind of a maybe a subpar cover. It's just a photograph of her. That might have hurt the sales a little bit, but after Horses, people had really high expectations for Patti Smith. This is an album where she co-wrote every song with a band member, and so it's a very there's that word democratic again. So the songs I'm going to go with is "Ain't It Strange," which is lyrically probably the strongest song. I'm going to go with two songs that are just great lyrically. There's other songs like "Pumpin' My Heart" that are just great rockers, they're great musically. But I'm going to go with "Ain't It Strange," which has a lot of puns in it, and a song that I used to be my least favorite on the album, but now I love it. It's called "Pissing in a River." It's really a feminist anthem. And when you read the lyrics, it's actually quite powerful. So, Radio Ethiopia, Patti Smith Group.
Okay, my number four is another band that many people haven't heard of, and they should have. Um, it's it's a band that was kind of on the fringes of prog rock and definitely on the fringes of glam rock, and it's a genre that I would call glam prog, and that is Bebop Deluxe by the brilliant guitarist Bill Nelson, who I'm proud to say actually accepted me as a Facebook friend when he first joined Facebook, and it's
Hmm.
really him. It's not just a fan thing. Um, and lots of people suck up to him on there. I don't. I just think it's cool that he accepted me as a Facebook friend. But Bill Nelson is what I would call a fantabulous guitarist. Um, Use a Van Morrison word there. The guy he's a killer guitarist, and he talks about how the band when he first put them together, it was like 1975, 74, 77, 74, I think, and glam was a thing, and they couldn't get a gig unless they wore makeup. So, and he said his wife wondered why he was putting on all this drag makeup before he would go and do a gig. And he said, it's the only way I can do a show. So he actually started wearing the heavy, and he made himself look like a glam Frankenstein for a while there. But the whole band was good. Simon Kirk, not Simon Kirk, Simon, it's
I
Simon
forgot.
somebody. And then Charles Tumahai on and then on bass and the uh Andy. See, this shows that my emphasis is on Bill Nelson, but Andy somebody who played on David Bowie's later album. Um,
Newark? Newmark? Is it
yeah,
Andy
yeah,
Newark?
right. Yes, and he played on David Bowie's Scary Monsters. Very, very good keyboard player. But the emphasis was not on any of the other instruments. It was always centered on Bill Nelson's burning guitar. And I got into two albums at the same time by this album. With this album, they were Sunburst Finish and Modern Music. And for a long time, it was tough for me to choose which I liked better. But over time, Sunburst Finish is a perfect album from beginning to end. And it begins with a galloping rocker, Fair Exchange, and it ends with a cool glam Halloween scary song, Blazing Apostles. Um, and it's Blazing Apostles is about making a phone call to hell to book a reservation. And it's great at the end of the song. This is the last song on the album. And at the end, you hear a phone pick up and Blazing Apostles, can I help you? Blazing Apostles, can I help you? And you know, Nelson, he was a clever lyricist. I wouldn't put him up there with Warren Zevon or Peter Hamill, but he was and still is a great lyricist. Um, and he still is very, very prolific, but he now pretty much sells all of his stuff from his own website. Um, and he does a lot of instrumental albums as well as vocal ones. But he was a great singer. His voice was similar to David Bowie's in some ways. But if you like Roxy Music and David Bowie, especially if you like the science fiction aspect of what Bowie did, check out Bebop Deluxe. Sunburst Finish with uh, Fair Exchange and Blazing Apostles.
Great song picks. I love that album. Yeah, great review. Perfect review. Number three for me. So here's an album we already talked about at length on our Bob Dylan discography, but I got to go with Desire. And yeah, it wasn't a top five. I don't think it was a top five album for me, but in this year, yeah, I love it. Um, I did describe it as my favorite sounding Bob Dylan album. Uh, Blood on the Tracks is my favorite Bob Dylan album, but Desire has a sound design that I adore. It it just has this great sound. So the fact that it has a bunch of really great songs on top of it, but this band, Howard Wyeth and Rob Stoner, and then of course the ladies Emmylou Harris on vocals and Scarlett Rivera on violin, and you got all this interesting percussion. The Rob Stoner on bass, I mentioned how good he is. The bass on this album is it's wonderful. I think it's a way above average bass guitar album. But then you've got like these little finger cymbals on some songs and just lots of different sounds. It's sort of I don't know, Mexican Western kind of thing going. So it's got this, even though the songs are different, it's got it's got this thematic consistency through the album if you just listen to the sound. If you don't read the words or listen to what Bob Dylan's singing, if you just listen to the music, it's really consistent musically. If you want to know more about our thoughts on this, you can go to our Bob Dylan top albums. I'll tell you that it's the last episode, the third episode of our series on Bob Dylan's albums because we both had it ranked high. But Desire's great. I mean, there might have been a time when it was my favorite album, but that's been supplanted since then. My picks, kind of obvious picks, I think I'm going to go with Hurricane and One More Cup of Coffee.
One More Cup of Coffee, beautiful song. And Hurricane is a classic. Guess what my number three is?
Desire.
Desire, yeah, by Bob Dylan. And I think this is true. I've heard this, I've read this, that Bob Dylan was going to the sessions and he heard this street musician who played a really killer violin, and it was Scarlett Rivera. And he just walked up to her and said, "Hey, I'm recording an album. You want to come and play on it?" And that kind of got her famous. She got a contract after that, and she was on the Rolling Thunder Review. And so A Star is Born through Bob Dylan. Um, this album, time has been good to it, not just with me, but with critics. I mean, people love this album now. When it first came out, it was kind of looked askance at, not really criticized, but look at what it was following. It was, what can you do after Blood on the Tracks? Okay. And so some people say, yeah, it's good, but it's not Blood on the Tracks. No, it's not Blood on the Tracks. It's Desire. And I agree. It has a character to it, kind of you know, a combination of an island vibe and a uh, Hispanic vibe. It's the band that makes it. Um, so I agree with you about Hurricane, but rather than choose that, I would choose a song that is my favorite and Cindy's from the album, and that is ISIS. And actually, I prefer the version of ISIS from the Rolling Thunder Live. But since that's not one of my choices, it's one of my honorable mentions. I'll go with ISIS. And the other one is, uh, did you say One More Cup of Coffee?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my other one also. One More Cup of Coffee.
Okay.
So
That'll be three songs. Yeah.
we both had it as a third. So and it's your party. So you choose the or if no, we still have three songs, right?
Yeah. Three songs. So, and for the viewers that are watching, most of you are not bothering to go to Spotify and play these playlists, but I got to tell you, they're killer. They're
They
killer.
are.
We are listening to the playlists ourselves, and we already know the songs. We're just really enjoying listening to this combination of favorites from the two of us. And if I may say so, I just think they're great playlists. My number two, here you go, Joni Mitchell, Ajira. Uh, my favorite Joni Mitchell album, and I'm surprised it's not number one on my list because it's one of my all-time favorite albums, and it's only number two because I have one album that I like better at number one. And yeah, it is jazz influenced in a way because she picked up Jaco Pastorius um, to play bass on here, though he does not play bass on every track. In fact, I didn't realize I guess she actually overdubbed his bass. I didn't know that. I thought they had worked together, because I was thinking Shadows and Light and all the other work that they did together. And he was on Don Juan's Reckless Daughter. But apparently she probably stripped out some bass that was already recorded and then put his bass on four of the tracks. But it's kind of a folk jazz thing because she was coming out of the folk movement. And it is jazz, but it's not jazz like you think jazz. She would do that on Mingus. She would play more in that bebop style or whatever, bop style, whatever you want to, not bebop, but bop, hard bop, that kind of style on Mingus. But on here, her acoustic guitar, which of course she always had alternate tunings, is so distinctive. And she doesn't play electric on here, I don't think. She might, but I don't think she does. She has other people play the electric on here. But her acoustic guitar is so distinctive. And there is not raggedness, I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for, but there's a free form to it. You think of free jazz, this is like free folk. I don't know how to describe it, but it has tons of space in it. And Jim knows that I really love a lot of space in music. I'm a big Miles Davis fan. I like music that's not too busy. There are exceptions to that. There are busy albums that I like. That Bebop Deluxe album is pretty busy, and I love it. But on here, there's just tons of space, and the musicians are so good. So for my songs, I'm going to go with Amelia, which is my favorite song on the album. I think the lyrics are so wonderful, talking about seeing six jet planes in the sky and seeing the streams that they make and the trails from the six jets, and those six are the strings on her guitar. And the lyrics on here, Amelia was just a false alarm. I think it's my favorite song lyrically. And then the other pick, I think I'd have to go with Refuge of the Roads, the one that you picked. So we'll just do three songs from this album. But Furry Sings the Blues and about Song for Sharon is great because it's about a friend that she had who wanted to be a singer, who ended up becoming a farmer, and Joni Mitchell wanted to become a farmer and ended up becoming a singer. So it's about the irony of that and about that struggle whether or not to get married. Because people who don't have, like me, I don't have children, and the professor has children. There are days I'm glad I didn't have kids, and there's days I wish I did. So it's that conflicted feeling that she captures. But Refuge of the Road is just a great travel song about the white lines on the freeway, and Amelia is absolutely my favorite song on the album. So number two, Joni Mitchell, Hajira.
My number two is one that you mentioned earlier. I rank it even a little higher. I also love it. It's um, Joan Armatrading's
Oh,
eponymous
wow.
album. And I've loved this album ever since it came out. Uh, when I first heard um, anything from the album, it was an advertisement for it. And they played a bit of Down to Zero, and her voice is so deep. I thought, is this a woman or a man? And then, of course, it's a woman. And by the way, a lot of people some years back became really into Tracy Chapman. And I said, hey, you like Tracy Chapman? You got to listen to Joan Armatrading because, Joan Armatrading was like the original Tracy Chapman. Although I think Joan Armatrading is a more sensitive, more diverse artist. I would choose the same two songs that you did, Down to Zero, um, and Love and Affection. So, how about for a third song, we go with a really beautiful ballad by her, Somebody Who Loves Me.
Okay, that's fine with
Okay.
me
All right.
because every song's great on there. Help
It
Yourself is
is.
great. Tall in the Saddle is great. Tall in the Saddle is funny.
Yeah, it is. Sooner or later, you're going to have to dismount.
Yeah, her sense of humor. She's got a wonderful personality. When I see her in interviews, she's always a delight. All right, my number one, you might be able to predict this one.
Yeah, I
Um,
can.
so my favorite album by Joni Mitchell is Hajira, and my favorite album by David Bowie is Station to Station. So, I had to decide which one to put where. They're very close. Uh, and Station to Station tour, I know we haven't talked yet about who we've seen in concert, but I did see this tour, and I think it has elevated the album for me. The album had just, I think it had just come out. I saw him in February of '76,
Yeah.
and I actually don't know if I heard the album before or not. I cannot remember. By the way, my ticket, I hate to tell you guys this that are watching, some of the younger viewers, but I still have my ticket stub sitting down, $6.50. $6.50 to see David
Amazing.
Bowie. I was in my final semester of high school, and it was a fantastic. There's that word again. It was a wonderful, fantabulous, super magical show. I love this album. It's got this thing where it's funk and it's Germanic. It's got the krautrock thing going, but it's got this band that I still think is Bowie's best band. George Murray on bass, Carlos Alomar on rhythm guitar, and Dennis Davis on drums is just a core rhythm section that you can't beat. And then he got Earl Slick on guitar and Roy Bittan from the E Street Band on piano and organ. And then Bowie plays his instruments, mellotron and sax, and the different things that he plays. I don't think it's credited, but there's one song on here that has harmonica. And every once in a while, Bowie would play harmonica, and I'm pretty sure it's him on harmonica, but I could be wrong about that. Just, well, I think it's only 6 songs, but it's got that. It's it. There's just something irresistible about the combination of the dark Germanic krautrock. Some krautrock is really fun, but this is darker. So he was influenced by Kraftwerk and Neu and those kind of bands, and but he also had just come off making Young Americans, and it's irresistible. And then the lyrics are great. Of course, he was coked out of his mind during this period, and says he doesn't remember making the album, but the lyrics are great. And there's video. By the way, the he performed a couple songs from this album on the Dinah Shore show, and I think it made amends for being on the Cher show the year before. I think he redeemed himself, but I guess a lot written about this. I also like Harry Maslin's production on here. So my tracks, I'm going to go with the opener, the title track, Station to Station, which has one of the best pieces of bass work I've ever heard in my life. Top 10 bass song. I would say George Murray's bass is killer on Station to Station. And then I'm going to go with Stay. And maybe it's because that was just so great in concert. But Station to Station and Stay from Station to Station.
This album had no right to be as good as it is, considering how whacked out on drugs Bowie was at the time. Um, and yet it all works. Every bit of it works. I totally agree with you with the title track, Station to Station. And I love the fact that um, he told Steve Earle, keep making it weirder, keep making the guitar weirder for the intro. Um, and that's something that Bowie did a lot. He did that, with Mike Garson on Aladdin Sane. Bowie was always pushing the musicians to go further than they were comfortable doing, and so he pushed Earl out of his comfort zone on this, and that's part of what makes the album so great. I love the line, "It's not the side effects of the cocaine." Yes, it is. Um, I'm thinking that it must be love. Um, so, that would be one of my choices. The other one is possibly my absolute favorite Bowie vocal. And considering how much I love Bowie as a songwriter, it's surprising it's not a song that he wrote. It's Wild as the Wind. And he just he's Bowie comes into his own as a Sinatra-esque crooner on this one. And what can I say about it except that, after all these listens, after hundreds of listens, it still gives me chills when I hear it. So Wild is the Wind, the last track on the album. So Station to Station and Wild is the Wind. And since we both have that as our number one, what would you choose? Oh no, we that's three songs because you
Yeah, I
had
picked Stay. Do you, this album, again, in reading up on it for this project, I don't know if you agree with me, but this does not sound like an album recorded in Los Angeles.
no.
It doesn't have LA vibes at all, in my opinion. So he's working with these Philadelphia musicians, but to me, it sounds very European.
I
Sounds like
agree.
he would have sounds like he would have recorded it in London or Switzerland or France. And but it's an LA album, and I don't get that. I don't get that feeling from it at all. So anyway, great. So we're going to go through our honorable mentions, but I love your list. So I have seven. And as I mentioned, four of these are five-star albums. So let's start with the ones that are not five-star albums. I'll mention those three first. These are not in any particular order, but I have Warren Zevon's debut on here. That was a contender for number 10 on my list. I put Steely Dan in there over Warren Zevon, but love Warren Zevon, and we've talked enough about the album, but all those great lyrics. My favorite song is Desperado Under the Eaves, but so many great songs, The French Inhaler, and just so many great songs on there. Can't say enough about Warren Zevon. Um, Bebop Deluxe, Sunburst Finish. Yeah, I love that album. And I like your two song picks. And for me, this is the perfect middle ground between the guitar gymnastics, histrionics, whatever you want to call it, from Axe Victim, which is a great album to listen to if you want to just hear great guitar and kind of just orgasm on guitar. But it is a little, maybe a little tiring before you get to the end of it. It doesn't have the depth of Sunburst Finish. And then some of my favorite bebop deluxe songs are actually on what was the album called? The one with Electrical Language,
Oh yeah, the
Drastic Plastic.
Drastic Plastic.
Uh, there's two or three songs on Drastic Plastic, New Mysteries, and the one about Japan. I love these songs, but it's not as strong an album as Sunburst Finish. That's when they would kind of go full new wave. This is the perfect middle ground between Axe Victim and Drastic Plastic, and I think they just hit their stride. And I'm glad you mentioned the keyboard player because I hear this song as a great marriage of electric guitar and keyboards. Uh, Not to discount the rhythm section, but yeah, just great band. And I will say, just from track to track to track, this album has a great running order. Don't you agree?
Yes, yes, it
It
does.
just, it's like I
Close.
wouldn't put those songs in any different order. Another one of my honorable mentions, a really fun album. My favorite, I think my favorite George Clinton album. My favorite song by Parliament is uh, "Give Up, Give Up the Roof." No, tear the roof off the sucker. Give up the funk. Tear the roof off the sucker. But there was a fun science fiction album called The Clones of Dr. Funkenstein in
Mhm.
1976. And this album is so much fun with Bootsy Collins and Bernie Worrell and all the, they were, to me, at their peak. Some of their earlier albums are more highly rated, but I like The Clones of Dr. Funkenstein. And actually, this idea of mixing funk and science fiction is now a popular trend in modern music. So this album was way ahead of its time. Now for my five-star albums, according to um, oh, and by the way, on our top 10, I was going to make a note. Hajira didn't get a lot of rave reviews, except you know who gave it 10 out of 10 was Pitchfork. So they get it. Anyway, I went back. I just forgot to mention that. But the four five-star albums on my honorable mention list is Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band Night Moves. Bob Seger's best album. A pretty close to perfect album. There are two songs with the same song content on there. Um, Sunspot Baby and Mary Lou, which are both about having a woman clean your bank account out. So there's a little bit of repetition on the album, but Bob Seger's Night Moves and the title track is one of the best radio singles ever. Another one is, and you'll be very pleased that I have this on here, Thin Lizzy, Jailbreak. I think this is a great album. I know how much you like Thin Lizzy. I played it again this week a couple times, and every song's great. Love Thin Lizzy. My favorite album by them, my favorite studio album, the pseudo live album is good too, but Jailbreak is a nice sweet spot for Thin Lizzy. Uh, Reggae. I have a reggae album on here. I love it. The Upsetters, aka Lee Scratch Perry, and his album Super Ape. It's you just got to hear it. It's dub, and I love dub music. And then an album that was recorded in 72 and 73, but not released until 76, The Modern Lovers. Jonathan Richman, Jerry Harrison. What can you say? This was such a trend-setting album. If it had come out in 73 like it should have, um, it would have, I think it would have blown people away. Modern Lovers was really proto new wave and a great album. So I'll run those by real quick again. Warren Zevon, Bob Seger, Bebop Deluxe, Thin Lizzy, Parliament, The Upsetters, and Modern Lovers.
All right. I have five honorable mentions because I just limited myself in each one. One of them is an album that often is overlooked in his au revoir, and that is Elton John's Blue Moves. In some ways, Blue Moves was, it seems, throughout his intensively long career, Elton John has returned to certain types of albums, trying to recapture the magic, especially in the last decade or so. But Blue Moves was an attempt to recapture Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. And it's a two-disc set, a lot of variety, some brilliant songwriting. Doesn't quite have the magic of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, which is why it's in my honorable mentions. But Elton's voice is great. It starts with an instrumental, just like Funeral for a Friend. And it's just got some really, really fine songs on it. If you like Elton John when he was cool, this was one of the last Elton John when he was cool albums before Elton John was, yeah, he's good, but he used to be cool. You don't have to say that about Blue Moves. It's a really, it's a very powerful album. Next is a band that I like an awful lot. An artist that I like an awful lot, and I one of the one of the ones that I discovered in Ground Floor when his first album came out, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Almost made it into my top 10. I love this album. It's got two killer tracks on it, Breakdown and American Girl. And a really funny story about American Girl. And I know this is true because Roger McGuinn said that it was. One time, Roger McGuinn in 1976 was driving along and he was listening to the radio, and American Girl came on, and he's grooving to it. He said, "When did I record this song?" He said, this is me. When did I record this song?" And it really does have a bird sound to it. And McGuinn said, "I must have been stoned out of my mind when I recorded it." Well, he wasn't. If you go on YouTube, you can find him doing the song, and he even, I think, recorded it on an album. But it's for anybody who said that Tom Petty was influenced by the Byrds. Yeah, they were. No, he was. Next, this could be a perfect double album with Bebop Deluxe's Sunburst finish, and that is modern music. Um, is it as good as modern music? I mean, as Sunburst finish? For many years, I thought it was better, largely because of the modern music suite on the second side, which gives it a real proggy edge to it. But it's also funny, especially the semi-instrumental dance of the Uncle Sam humanoids. And it's Bill Nelson cutting loose with the same type of sound that he made with Sunburst Finish, but he's going a little bit more crazy with this album. And it was the last truly great album Bebop Deluxe made before they did Drastic Plastic. And then another one that many people love, and some of your viewers, Gene, might attack me for not having put this in the top 10, and you too, and that is Eagles Hotel California. But I do love this album. It's yes, it's slick as hell. It's been played so much it's a cliche, but certain songs like the track Hotel California, Life in the Fast Lane, The Last Resort, these are just such great. There's not a bad song on there. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the first Eagles album that Joe Walsh um, joined the band. Is that
Right,
right?
right. Hmm.
So I love this album. And then finally, one that you chose early on, and this almost made my top 10. Steely Dan's The Royal Scam. For a long time, this was my favorite Steely Dan album. It's not now, it's my second favorite album, but I love it. And You mentioned Kid Charlemagne, and I also love the song Any Major Dude Will Tell You.
That's from Pretzel Logic, though.
Oh, that's right. It is. That's on Pretzel Logic. So Kid Charlemagne would be the song that I would choose.
Yeah. Yeah, you got the Fez and Green Earrings and the Royal Scam. The title track is great,
That's right. That's right.
and Caves of Altamira, and yeah, so great honorable mention picks. I love it. So we're gonna have a great playlist, and so what we do here for the viewers is we wrap this video up by just going through real quick and highlighting the people from our lists, honorable mentions included, that we've seen in concert. So I'm gonna do that. Let's see, Modern Lovers. Well, I haven't seen the Modern Lovers in concert, but I have seen Jonathan Richman, and I have seen Jerry Harrison with Talking Heads. So I've kind of seen him, but I did see Jonathan Richman at a club, though I was late for the show, so I only caught about half the set.
Did you ever
Um,
see the Cars?
what's that?
Did you ever see the Cars? Dave Robinson was another member of the Modern Lovers. Dave Robinson, who joined the Cars.
No, I never saw the Cars. Never
Hmm.
saw them. So I've seen some of Modern Lovers, but Richmond's the main, the guy that wrote the song. So you probably didn't know that I saw him, but I did see him. I saw him the same night I saw Graham Parker. So that's why I was late. I saw Graham Parker, and someone at the show said, "Hey, I'm going to see Jonathan Richman. You want to come along?" I said, "Sure." We walked in the middle of the show and caught half of his set. So, um, was there a woman involved? I'm not saying. Okay.
Was it Stevie Nicks?
No,
Oh,
the Parliament. Believe it or not, I've seen Parliament. Now it was billed as George Clinton with Parliament and Funkadelic. And the way they did this was Parliament did the opening set, or they did Parliament music, I should say, because it was the same band. And then they took an intermission and they came out and they did a Funkadelic set. So I did see George Clinton at Celebrity Theater. It was great. Man, that place was full of marijuana smoke. Unbelievable. Um, Bob Seger, I've seen twice. Uh, Great band, but he did go through the motions a little bit. How you doing, Phoenix? That kind of thing. But yeah, a lot of members of Little Feat in the band, and yeah, just great. Warren Zevon I've seen twice. Both times I was disappointed, believe it or not, even though I'm a huge fan. First time I saw Warren Zevon, he headlined, and the opening band was X.
Hmm.
And X blew Warren off the stage, sorry. And then I saw him at Anderson's Fifth Estate, and the acoustics weren't very good in there, and it was just him unplugged without a band. But at least I can say I've seen him. Steely Dan, I did see Steely Dan, believe it or not. When they reformed and started touring again, they made an album from that tour called Alive in America. I've seen Joan Armatrading two times. Once at Mesa Amphitheater. I don't know if you were with me at that show. I think
It
you were.
was. Yeah.
And then I saw her again at Gamage, and I don't believe you were with me in that show. Genesis, I've seen twice in the Phil Collins era. Bob Marley, I've never seen, but I did see Peter Tosh one time. But of course, he's not on this album, Rostamon Vibration. I've seen Patti Smith once. I've seen Bob Dylan twice. I never saw Joni Mitchell, but I did see Jaco Pastorius at a club one time. That was interesting. And then I've seen David Bowie four times.
Well, that's amazing, but then I'm not surprised because you are much more of a concert goer than I am. Um, like I pick and choose who I go see, and you pretty much go to anybody that's good, or at least you used to.
Yeah.
So it's not a surprise. I only have four from these that I've actually seen in concert. Um, Bob Dylan, seen him once. Joan Armatrading, seen her. We talked about that. As a matter of fact, you mentioned marijuana smoke. At the Joan Armatrading concert, it was an outdoor concert, and you dropped a joint on my rug that we were sitting on out there and burned a hole in it. Um, oh, and I'll always remember that from there. And then,
I, of course, don't remember.
of course, you don't. And David Bowie several times, yes, and Elton John three times.
Okay. Wow. That's great. Well, we're done. And again, we encourage the viewers to engage, write your comments. We love it. And I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're still hanging on, we really appreciate it. And I'm going to let you say goodbye first. You got anything you want to say from Phoenix?
Just embrace the existential dread.
Perfect. My shirt is Antone's Home of the Blues, Austin's Home of the Blues, which is a great club in Austin, Texas. And as we say, but we're not in Austin, Texas. I'm in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, and we say Bonita Dia. Buen dia. All right.
Bye
Thanks,
bye.
Jim.